going to record this, so Tina has started it. So just I'll know that we're recording this presentation. So if you've seen some migratory warblers come in as we wait for folks to come in and start the presentation, let us know. What have you been seeing in your backyards? Black-throated green warblers here today. Prothonotary warblers down in the National Wildlife Refuge. I had my students out there the other day. We got 4 different individuals, so they're back a couple of weeks now. So Tina is with me today, and she'll be helping out. We'll do introductions momentarily, but let me know, Tina, when we get enough people in, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure.
Hey, there's
Judy.
Judy. She's on Jimmy's phone. Jimmy's
Hi, Judy.
so she's
Oh,
gonna.
here's Jim.
So many of you know Judy Gallagher. She's on the
You're
adult.
muted, Jim. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, Jim
Jim's trying to
Gardner
say
is with
something.
us as well. Fantastic, Jim. Well, we'll bring you in to talk about Saturday morning. I hope we have a number of people here that are ready to get out on Saturday and go down to the Wildlife Refuge. It looks like we're going to have some good weather, a beautiful day to get out and do a good annual count that we do down there. So how are we doing, Tina? Shall I get
I think
started?
we're good. You can go ahead and start.
All right.
I think we're just going to jump right into your slides today, so we have more
Okay.
time for them.
Real quickly. Okay, everybody. Well, welcome. My name's Tom Wood. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a professor at George Mason University, and I've been on the board here for, I don't know, a number of years at this point in time, and am on the Adult Education Committee. We have some real special guests with us tonight. Bill is back in town, so you see Bill Young is there. Maybe give a wave real quick, Bill. And we have Judy Gallagher, who's also on the board, is with us as well, and she's in the Adult Ed Committee, and I think she's in there on an iPhone tonight. And of course, Jim Wagner is with us tonight, and I'm sure Jim will like to talk to us, perhaps as we wrap up this evening, about the field trip, which is actually on International Bird Day, which is Saturday coming up in 4 days from today, on the 10th, and recruiting folks to come out in the morning and do a bird count. So there's a number of things that are upcoming and that we're doing in the Bird Alliance, and you can see over there that there's one thing we wanted to pull out in particular for you, and that's our upcoming course. So if you're interested in our introductory bird course, that's coming up. You can still sign up. Tina, you want to say something real quick about our introductory bird course, the hybrid nature of it, the online and the field trip components?
Sure, yeah. So we'll be doing a 5-week program. It'll be Mondays and Thursdays, 7 to 8, or actually 7 to 8:30. Each session will be 90 minutes. But they'll all be recorded. So if you have any conflicts, that's okay. You can just watch the session and catch up with us in person the next time. And there will also be 3 optional field trips to a few exciting places, including a bluebird trail, Huntley Meadows, and Occoquan National Wildlife Refuge. I'm going to drop in a link in the chat with information about the course and how to sign up for that.
And those field trips will be fun, and there's a number of people who've expressed interest. They're quite good birders, and you'll get lots of stories and good information there. I think I'm scheduled to do a couple of those at some point, so that'll be fun. And so please take advantage of that. Check out our website here for upcoming things, and this is where you find us at nbbirdalliance.org. Okay. All right, so without further ado, we'll get started this evening. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And Tina, feel free to interrupt at any point in time. Bill, if you've got comments, or Jim or Judy, if anybody else has got a particularly relevant comment, please feel free to jump in here. We'll make this kind of fun and interactive. We've got a set of slides here we're going to go through fairly quickly, but I'd like to have an interactive presentation a little bit if we can. So Let me find out where we're going to share from here. And we're all set and ready to go. Any questions before we get started? Okay. Sharing the screen. There we are. Okay. We'll go back up here to the top. So let me go back here and do, how about that view? Can everybody see that now? Does that look good, Tina?
Yes, looks great.
All right, wonderful. Well, we're celebrating World Migratory Bird Day. Creating bird-friendly cities and communities is our theme this year, and enhancing the urban spaces for migratory bird safety. And that's why, particularly if you take a look at our website, the number of things that we're doing conservation-wise are really relevant to what's happening today. So here's a number of ways that you can, that we're looking at creating our bird-friendly cities and communities this year, doing things like planting native species, saying no to plastics. These single-use plastic things are a big issue for us all. And what's going on here? Let's go back. Yeah. Purchasing sustainable products, and we're defining what sustainability is at these points in time. Taking care of your windows. Lots of ways to do that. We've been pushing that quite a bit with other organizations like ABC, American Bird Conservancy. Keeping your lights down at night. Keeping your cats indoor. Tonight I don't have Mouse with me. Many of you have seen him before, but all the cats that live here have elected to live in my house. Treat them respectfully and keep all things treated with respect. Keep your cats as an invasive species. If they get outside, keep them inside, keep them healthy. And protecting, and maybe Judy will chime in at some point in time here about talking about reducing our chemical use. And in fact, I'll maybe talk about that a little bit as we get further along, since I just got back from Puerto Rico in a conference and we were talking about exactly those things. So Migratory Bird Day was established in 1993. And I know that Russ Greenberg, who was a friend of mine back when I was a graduate student in 1993 at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, was instrumental in setting this up. Unfortunately, Russ has passed away, but his memory here for the significance of his work to establish this Migratory Bird Day was there, and also with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So both the Smithsonian, here our neighbors and folks we work with regularly, and the Cornell Lab get a lot of credit for establishing this. Really a call to action to look at what we need to do, as many of you have heard, that we have had a tremendous decline in migratory birds. And so what are the kinds of things that we can do, especially in our cities and in these days? So the theme of shared spaces, creating bird-friendly cities and communities is really the theme this year. And the importance of urban habitats for birds, and the resources, the green space benefits. One of the things that we're really concerned about is habitat fragmentation. So for our local birds, as well as the migrants, having the habitat available and the food sources available for them. And then nesting areas in cities and communities. If you come over to my house, you'll find a cone in the front yard, and I think, who's the crazy guy who lives here? I actually have a pair of towhees that are nesting right at the front porch down low in the side. And so when they move in, anybody who comes in the house has to go around to the side door, and that's just the way it is. And so give that amount of respect out there for anything that decides. Many of you probably have robins that are starting to nest in your yards, and be aware and take care of that. Important. All our habitats are important. Habitat destruction is really the #1 problem that we face today as in the field of conservation biology. We talk about that as what are these things that are really causing the problems, and habitat destruction is really kind of #1. Certainly pollution is a problem. and invasives that cause increased predation for migratory birds, and there's especially cats. Those are the big ones that we talk about quite often. Of course, there's many benefits for bird-friendly communities and having birds in your local area. Um, Boosting local economies by doing ecotourism kind of work. Enhancing biodiversity, which is simply the respectful thing to do for nature. It is important that we recognize and respect all the living things around us. It makes it better for humanity in the long run, and it promotes our own individual health as we get out there and integrate with the natural world, which is where we all come from. So it's good to do. That's our quality of life issue. And then, of course, taking advantage of education opportunities. This is an opportunity for those of you who are good birders to get other folks out there, use birds as a vehicle for understanding the natural world and getting back into nature and promoting a sense of stewardship um, by showing respect and learning about all of these animals. What about planting natives? Does anybody want to jump in and talk about who knows what do we do in the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance that has to do with planting natives? Who wants to jump in here and say something about that? Who knows what we do? What's the component of the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance that encourages you to plant natives? Anybody?
Used to be Audubon at home.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, all of us, it jumps into our mind right there as Audubon at home. Tina, you want to chime in here for a
Yeah,
second?
it's now called the Wildlife Sanctuary Program.
And so, it's a very active part of the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance, and um, you can get your yard certified if you have somebody come out and do some consultation with you, get some native plants put into your yard, and enjoy the incredible diversity of insects and through up the enrichment of your local ecosystem and how that will attract lots of different organisms and including birds. And so if you're interested, everybody can take part in that, and there's no place that's too small. And it really makes you feel good if you get your certification. So what do you notice in this particular picture? You've got the happy cat inside. And what are those dots on the window about there? Those are the strategies we use to prevent window strikes. So you have to have those set about every 3 inches apart. That's one of the ways to do this, and there are other ways. Planting local stuff. Those look like coffee plants to me, and then maybe cacao. I'm not sure what's in there in this particular image, but native stuff in Central America, or that would be a typical scene that you might see. In fact, I saw that just 3 days ago. Somebody handed me. I was eating raw cacao right out of the pod in a coffee plantation. So what are the benefits of native plants for birds? Well, without native plants, what do you get? How many of you have ever walked into a bamboo stand here in Northern Virginia? Have you ever done that? I encourage you to do so if you've never done it. What do you think you'll hear? If you walk into a bamboo stand and you sit down quietly and just close your eyes and pay attention, what do you hear? Silence. Silence is what you hear. And what we find is that when we have invasive species come in and take over habitats, that the local flora and fauna are not adapted to those species and they avoid them. And so you don't have the successional systems set up, you don't have the insects there, and so you don't have the predation by the birds as they're coming through in preparation. You'll notice that everything is so intimately connected, and the opening of the canopy here that we've just seen in the last 2 weeks. And what does that open up with the insect population that's so inviting to our migrants that are coming from Central and South America? the timing of it is critical. The beauty of that whole ballet is interrupted when you take away the native species and put invasive species in that don't support that entire ecosystem. So everything from food sources to the nesting materials, keeping healthy ecosystems by having diverse systems with multiple organisms in them, always much better. So some of the examples, and we've got many other examples that we can talk about, but certainly coneflowers, milkweed. Milkweed is, of course, for our flagship species of the with the monarch butterflies and many others. There's lots of places around that we can make recommendations to you to put in uh, uh, local wildflowers that are native here, and there are specialty places around that will provide you with the appropriate seed mixes to get native plants back in. And when you do that, the insects will show up, and it's quite amazing. And if we do habitat restoration in field areas, that's where we've seen the tremendous decline of species, the migratory species especially, are the field specialists. And so if you can do anything to help in that area, that's uh, increasingly needed and necessary for conserving our birds. So doing this, again, getting in touch with our folks is a great way to do this. There's many others around. Going to native plant sources. This is the time of year that there's a lot of sales going on. Places like Clifton Institute is doing a bio blitz, and they're having a plant sale coming up. Places like Earth Sang are around, and community workshops promoting biodiversity in that way is something that's good for you to do. U.S. Geological Survey has a lot of information on your local soil types as well, and so that's an important thing to consider for restoration projects. Okay, well, we have a huge movement with plastics in our country. And as you know, these single-use plastics are something that are quite harmful to the environment. We're all familiar with what's going on out in the plastic patches that are in the ocean, like floating around north of Hawaii up in the northern part of the Pacific. And what we find in albatrosses that have died on beaches is stomachs that are full of plastic. So here's material that doesn't break down and is increasingly being pushed for production as the oil companies see a transition away from burning fuel through automobiles. They're building more and more plastic production plants down in the Gulf area for the convenience of using single-use plastics. But this is a tremendous problem in our environment, and there's a need for action to help to decrease our use of plastics, single-use disposable plastics, and the damages they cause. Well, of course, how can you do that? Well, just don't purchase stuff that's in plastic. Use your reusable bags. Use reusable bottles that don't have plastics that are toxic to you in them, and support local businesses. Go to your farmer's market, buy your food there, where you're not going to have it pre-wrapped in plastic. Those kinds of ideas are good to do. A lot of us here are old enough to remember all the recycling initiatives that we did when we were younger with smashing aluminum cans, but now you know the plastic recycling programs are out there. Don't get too caught up in the one, two, three, four, five, which is really a promotion to make you feel guilty if you don't select the right number in your recycling program. But there's got to be a push to recycle more than just one and two numbers on the recycling, and push organizations to use those recyclable plastics and not those that have to go to the landfill. We're currently working with the landfill and talk to them quite a bit about the amount of plastics that come through that are burned in the system over there. That's probably something that we can do quite a lot better on as a society. So other things, locally purchasing sustainable products. One of the things that I mentioned here, of course, is going to your local farmer's market, getting healthy foods that you can purchase locally, utilizing renewable resources, the opportunities to do solar in this area are growing, and then minimizing your own waste. Let's talk about shade coffee a little bit. This is a great tribute to our colleagues at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center. I just came back from Costa Rica, where the Hurricane Maria wiped out about something like 80% of the coffee production, and things are coming back. And the research that's going on there now is really, really focused and encouraging producers to replant shade-grown coffee. And why is this so important? Well, that's really important for migratory birds. Hurlitz Davis, who is also one of my former graduate students, is also on the board, did his work in Jamaica on shade-grown coffee. And we spent quite a lot of time talking with farmers about the alternative sources of income that they can have from producing other fruits, things like mangoes and bananas and papaya, um, in their coffee plantations, and increasing the diversity there, decreasing the need for using pesticides. So that's something we examined in Puerto Rico this last week, even down to 3 different species of ants that were helping to prevent fungal growth on the leaves of the coffee, and prevent so they didn't have a need to spray these coffee plants. So a lot of dynamics there, but the more diversified you can make it, the better. There are places that you should buy your coffee, and the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center shade-grown coffee and their certification process is one of the most important. I think that's up here. Drinking, oh, how do I get there? Hold on. Drinking bird-friendly coffee, right? Certified, bird-friendly certified coffees that you can get, that you can purchase. It's hard to find those in the stores. A lot of places don't have them, but that mark that you see on the left, the bird-friendly designation from the Smithsonian, is really the top tier. If you see that one, and if you go on the Smithsonian website, you can find and purchase their coffee. It is actually excellent coffee. It's really, really good stuff. So that's one way that you can do this. That's really the gold standard. And certified farmers, work with our colleagues at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, who go to these places, help to educate folks on how to do this. Shade-grown coffee lasts longer than sun-grown coffee, so the plants don't burn out. The initial productivity of the coffee is lower, but the plants live a longer period of time, and it's higher quality coffee that can demand a higher price. Lots of other, use of when you're buying organic foods or eco-friendly products that are produced in places. There are oftentimes these check in these organizations and see how friendly they are to their local species that are living there and supporting their local ecosystems. Again, it comes down to respect, and we should be aware of and respectful of all the other organisms that live in our environment. It's good for us, and it's good for them. Talk about windows for a minute, and we've been pushing this legislatively in other ways. Looking at ways to prevent bird strikes, the Smithsonian has been testing this for quite a long period of time. The American Bird Conservancy and others have done this. The Canadians are actually quite progressive here in pushing the new construction has to have bird-friendly windows in it. And we need to do that in the United States as well. But in the meantime, in your own homes and places, get a hold of what you can, of the bird strike materials that you can put onto your windows to prevent And they don't really impair your vision from inside, but they allow the birds to see if there's a reflection in a window, especially in the mornings and the evenings. Oftentimes there's a reflection, and they think they can go right through these windows. So unless you have reflective materials on there that they can see, um, they often strike windows. So that's a major loss to migratory birds every year. So again, birds aren't seeing planes of glass when they have a reflection on them, and we lose millions and millions of birds every year. There's a couple of great documentaries that we can recommend to you talk about this. And there are solutions for this, and legislatively we need to continue to pursue this, and we need to, in our own homes, make sure we're doing this as well. So how do we make them, our windows, bird friendly? Well, the important things to do are to use these window films that I just talked about. The Bird Safe glass now is glass that is produced and put into the buildings during the construction area. And then, of course, window screens are wonderful. And I've seen bird strikes happen in facilities when they were being chased by Cooper's hawks and ran into a screen and bounced right off and got away easily. So, things that have a screen on the outside can often really protect and provide an insulated bump if the bird is forced into it. Here's an example where you can see that the dots on the window are placed approximately 3 inches apart. And this has proven to be effective at reducing collisions by something like 80%. Um, so that's always a good option that everyone can do. It's cheap, and it doesn't look bad, and you can do it creatively if you want to. I mean, there's all kinds of designs, and you can do it with simple dots, or you can get more creative with it as well. Feather friendly, do it at home. Windows that reflect vegetation or seem to provide path are especially hazardous, so you want to get kits and make sure that you can see the striped tape on the side, that you just run that across your window. Multiple options there, different price ranges. Another factor is dimming lights for birds at night. This was a factor, you may remember post 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down. There was a light beam that was put up every evening as a symbol of before the new buildings were produced. And during migration, there were representatives there from Cornell that came out and were able to make calls as they looked up, and aggregations in New York City of migratory birds um, that were attracted to those lights and swirling in the lights and starting to come down as a potential hazard to them. They would turn those lights off. So there has been a real movement to try to be aware of and dim lights at night, especially in larger buildings during migration. So lights out makes a lot of sense from an energy production standpoint and also from a safety standpoint. The other thing is that pointing lights like street lights and things down and not upward saves energy and doesn't attract the birds when they're in migration. So lots of strategies we can use there other than flooding the streets all the time. And there's also arguments against, well, that's safety for people, but oftentimes dimmer lights are better because you can see better and you don't have blind spots around you all the time that you can see. So the disorientation is well documented. When they see lights, they move toward them. Migratory birds use stars and in their migratory cycles, so light is important to them. And it can disturb their daily behaviors. Many of you may have mockingbirds that are out there by all night long singing outside your windows. That's probably something that doesn't happen in areas that don't have the lights, right? And then disorientation leads to immortality, to more increased mortality rates in migratory birds. And it's a costly thing. It's quite expensive for populations of birds to migrate It's a very serious endeavor to undertake, and it's quite risky. If you've ever seen the documentary Winged Migration, it'll give you a good sense of that. I encourage you all to go see that. So strategies for reducing light pollution, just turn your lights off, right? And these downward facing fixtures are really important. You can get those at the hardware stores now. So on the side of your house, if you have bulbs that project outward and upward, get something that projects a little bit dimmer and downward. Um, and then talk to your neighbors, talk to other folks. We talk about it a little bit in our homeowners association, and people are quite receptive to those ideas in general. Let's go back to talking about birds, and I didn't bring Mouse in here tonight. Many of you have seen him before. But keep your cats inside, or the cats that own you. They should be allowed to be inside. Keep them happy. It's much, much healthier, especially in this part of the world where we have all kinds of diseases and things that eat cats. So cats have a hard time here with the predators that are around. It's much healthier and more respectful of them to allow them to stay indoors. Building porches for them, taking them out on leashes. Those are all healthy things to do. They enjoy being outside just as we do, but don't allow them to cause bird mortality. So there's a lot of controversy over cats and taking care of cats and letting them be outside versus inside, but they are an invasive species, a domestic cat in this part of the world. And as someone who did their PhD studies working with the family Felidae, you know, the domestic cat, Sylvestri, has been the most successful of all of the species in the family Felidae. And that's because they associate with us and we take care of them. But keeping them inside and in different areas where they're not native is really quite important. Here's a good example of a cattery, you know, coming out from a window where a cat can come inside and outside a little bit and enjoy the fresh air and being outside, but is not allowed to hunt in the yard and kill the robin that might be nesting nearby or invade their habitat and kill the young birds. Mortality rates among fledglings is quite high from predation, and cats are a big part of that. There's one solution for you. So I don't know how many of you have cats that may have, you know, playing with them indoors, playing with them outdoors, taking them on leashes and talking to folks are all good things to do with cats. Let's talk about chemical use and to protect insects. I mentioned there's research going on in universities in Puerto Rico with colleagues from University of Michigan looking at the effects of ant populations and other kinds of insects in coffee plantations, for example. So there's many things we can do here too. If you have a diversified set of plants in your yard, you're going to get a lot of birds coming in that are going to control the insects. The insects oftentimes will control some of the diseases. If you have your native species there and things are in balance, then you'll have a healthy system. So that's what we call, you know, this biodiversity maintenance idea, that healthy insect populations are really part of supporting bird populations and reptile populations as well. So it's important that you have things there and in balance. And if you've got the right plants in a native ecosystem, things work out really well. But it's really important. Those insects are good, and have the right attitude toward insects. We all tend to be a little paranoid of insects, but that's not the case. Judy's going to chime in here and tell us how important insects are, I'm sure.
Okay, I'll chime in. Insects are really important. I'm sure a lot of you on the call know of Doug Tallamy, who is a professor of entomology at the University of Delaware. He's had some of his graduate students do research, and Do you know how many caterpillars it takes to rear one brood of chickadees? And I might mention that chickadees are seed-eating birds, but their young can only eat caterpillars. So the answer is 5,000 caterpillars just for one brood of chickadees. Multiply that by all the other birds that are raising kids, and you need an awful lot of insects.
Yeah. And they're there, right? I mean, this is when the canopy opens. It's surprising the number of insects that the canopy supports. And so a healthy system is there. It's just surprising to us because we don't see it up close and personal.
But to expand on what you were saying about chemicals and pesticides, insects, well, first of all, pesticides kill insects, and that is not good as a general philosophy. It might be good in very specific situations, but things like fertilizer can also be bad because anything that washes into our waterways can impact how well insects can do, and birds. So try to not use as much as possible.
Yeah, in general, monoculture systems are vulnerable. So if you only have one species there, there's going to be a lot of things that will try to take advantage of that. That's a natural system. So having polyculture systems where you have a diversity of things, and that's not lawns. That's the alternate to lawn landscapes, where we can have a variety of species there, is a much healthier system and does not need to have the kind of pesticides and throwing nitrogen fertilizers all over the place as well. The nitrogen fertilizer, since you mentioned that, statistics on that say we throw, when you buy it at Home Depot, people tend to throw about 100 times more onto lawns than agricultural places do out in the watershed farther out. And so vast majority of the nitrogen that's thrown on lawns runs down into the Chesapeake Bay, and that's the eutrophication problems that we have there in the health of the bay, nitrogen and phosphorus issues. So we need to, it's a lot we can do with our local yards to keep getting over the cultural need to have mowed lawns everywhere. So organic practices, polyculture systems promoting biodiversity, and natural pest management, so that's our birds coming in. Green tree frogs, that's not a local frog there, that's from the tropics, but or local frog management, local frogs, promoting local frogs is a great idea. So those are several factors that we've covered, that are being promoted by this program for our migratory birds. The importance of what we need to do in city areas to help our migratory birds. If everybody takes some of these simple actions, you'll feel a lot better. You can promote it to other folks. You'll have a healthier system around your home, and you will attract more birds. Things that we're doing in Northern Virginia Bird Alliance promote community engagement. We are really looking to diversify participation to represent all the people who live in Northern Virginia, the wisdom that they bring from other countries when they come here as immigrants. And so all of those things are important. And that's really the emphasis of this International Migratory Bird Day. So the other things, of course, that we're doing is monitoring, and Jim is here. Jim Wagner is here. And on Saturday, there's an annual survey that's being done. Jim is our champion of surveys and has been a board member in the past of Northern Virginia Audubon, who we are. So I'd like to invite Jim to talk a little bit about Saturday and make some comments there, and then we can bring up any questions. So Tina, I want to invite you to, I haven't been watching the chat, so if you've got any good questions that can come up, we can discuss that. But Jim, you want to jump in here for a few minutes?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to promote what we're doing on Saturday. It's always a struggle to get volunteers on a prime time spring Saturday when the weather's good. Uh, Sometimes we're lucky and sometimes we're not. We've done it on a shoestring a few times, and sometimes the birds have helped us out on those occasions, sometimes not. So there are dips and valleys in what to expect in the way of productivity on a given Saturday in second Saturday of May, which is the designated day and the day we've always been able to hold the migratory bird count. You mentioned 1993. We got the call in 1992 that there was going to be an international migratory bird effort, and myself and a retired Foreign Service economist who had, the two of us had birded in various places around the world, and the two of us managed to get together enough to get out, and with the focus around the what would become the Occoquan Bay National Wildlife Refuge. We spent most of our time in the vicinity of that. It wasn't open to the public at that point. It was still under tight government Army control as a classified site long before it was turned over as a refuge. Our sum total that day, I believe, was 46 or 47 species, and it was a miserable day in terms of weather. I mentioned all of this because the next year, when the count was getting underway and elsewhere, we were one of two stations to report birds in the United States that day for this specific purpose. So I feel we have a vested interest in the International Migratory Bird Day, or World Migratory Bird Day. But the next year, I was able to get access to what would become the refuge on the old Army base, and we had 10 people participating that year. The weather was better, and we had 95 species in the course of a morning birding there. And that's always been the standard from my point of view, is what can we produce in basically a morning's birding effort in and around that refuge. And it's run as high as 126 species. An extraordinary amount, considering it's only a little more than a square mile of birding space. This reason that the Occoquan is so attractive, or has been in the past, is because of the diversity of habitats. There's something there for virtually every migratory bird that would come this way. And there are a lot of migratory birds that come and go along the Potomac River, following it. Either it's imprinted or however else they're able to navigate to make those incredible journeys. Occoquan is an inviting place to drop into. So it's a good and reasonable place for us to continue holding account, to keep track of the rise and fall of species, and to promote the benefits and also the pure joy that a satisfactory birding event can bring to people, particularly young people. So what we're doing at Occoquan this Saturday is what we've done in the past, and that is meeting at I go there at 6 o'clock in the morning, or earlier if I have I'm able to get permission to do that. But I can go at 6 o'clock and set up camp at the front gate of the refuge, and that's valuable because that's when the barred owls and the great horned owls may still be sounding off. They will maybe continue until 10 o'clock or so in the morning, but the earlier the better. For several years, standing at the front gate before the gate opened, we'd get the first common nighthawk of the year. Haven't seen one now in about a dozen years, but that is no doubt as a result of the limited number of insects that are being provided to sustain these birds as they come through. It may also be that those birds are suffering from degradation of habitat in their other home when they're not migrating. At any rate, at 6:30, I encourage people to be there, and we get organized. Teams are assigned, and generally the refuge is covered from the time it opens at 7 o'clock until 12 o'clock for 5 solid hours of working in assigned sectors of the refuge. And I've broken down the refuge into four north, south, east, and west sectors that each includes a different types of habitat. Cumulatively, they add up to basically everything that might hold birds on that given day, or had birds fly over on that given day. There's another piece of this that's on the adjacent Veterans Memorial Park. That's area number 5 of Veterans Park. And that allows a close on-the-ground eye-level view of Murrumsco Creek, which is the western border of the Occoquan Bay National Wildlife Refuge. Those of you who are familiar with the refuge will know that the Potomac River and the Occoquan River make up a pretty significant part of the border of the refuge. So it's got plenty of waterfront appeal, but it also has marsh and stream activity that's attractive to the birds migrating through. So those 5 sectors covered for 5 hours by hopefully teams of 3 or 4 people per team can have in the past brought us an average of 101 species per day. And that's what you could shoot for if you're there and able to join us on this Saturday. We have seen a decline in some species. We've seen an increase in some numbers of some species. Basically, the numbers are starting to dwindle, probably peaking around 1999 and 2003, somewhere in that area. Not what you would call a dramatic drop, but it's declining to some extent. That's why I think it's important to continue making this effort. If we can make the time the same, if we cover the same areas with about approximately the same number of people who are experienced with the refuge, or even beginners if they're with good experienced people. But if we do those things constantly, these surveys that are done there, the counts, and similar ones all around the country and the world, will produce the raw material, the raw data that will tell us a great deal about whether we're rising or falling. And most of us who've been birding for very long, or if our interests are butterflies or dragonflies or American bees or whatever has attracted us in nature, know what the threats are and have a sense of what the outcomes are and that are manifesting themselves. But there are these things that Tom has described that can help in bringing some relaxation in the drastic declines facing some of the species. I would make one more comment about this, and that is the importance of protected properties. Occoquan has become a real hotspot for birders. We knew it was going to be, and it is. Very, very proud that we've been able to contribute in securing properties like that for the community. But consider what the migratory bird count might be had that property and the Manassas battlefield area and the regional parks had not been set aside as they have been for the public's use and benefit. It would be an entirely different story. Audubon at Home takes care of us at home. We all must take care of us in a community-wide sense by securing and maintaining these properties in the fashion that best suits the birds and the other creatures. So there, Tom, I'm open to any questions about
Thanks so
this.
much, Jim, and of course that, this data, is the data that you have organized over so many years as a citizen science data set for the birds, as well as the local biodiversity, is one of the most important in the entire country. And so, as we're doing a lot of work to take that data and interpret it over time, that's important. Quickly, Bill is back as well, and Bill's got quite a lot of experience here, especially with warblers coming through. And Bill, I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the importance of what's happening with this tremendous migratory event that we all get excited. My students think I'm crazy every year when I look out and say they're back. You know where they've been. So
one of the things I'm going to be most interested in is to see if perhaps the migration period is moving forward a little bit so that it's happening earlier. I just talked to someone who does a survey at Monticello Park, and he says that the migration this spring has really been front loaded. They've gotten a whole lot of species from the middle to the end of April that usually show up a lot later. And the first part of May has actually been pretty slow. And that possibly could be because we've had not so great weather in the last few days. But I'm very interested because I did teach a course for NVBA about climate breakdown. And I'm very interested in seeing how, if there is, we probably won't know for a while, but if there is any effect from the warming climate causing birds to migrate earlier. Now, most birds in the tropics migrate based on photosensitivity, or at least that's what was thought. When the amount of daylight changes, that's when they know to migrate. But I'm starting to wonder whether there could be other factors that are affecting when they start to migrate. And as such, it's going to require having a number of years of data to see just how important the changing climate is. But that's one thing, because because some birds are coming quite a distance, it's not just the climate up here. You also have to worry about the climate where they overwinter and the climate along their migratory routes. And so that's one of the things that I'm particularly interested in.
yeah, and there's a couple of things there as well as we look at, with climate change, we're also seeing these larger variations around the norm. So the variations, we don't have a nice smooth increase. The frequency of hurricanes, for example, is one of those examples of more intense hurricanes, which I just experienced looking at the long-term aftermath of Maria in Puerto Rico this last weekend. But so that's a real problem for migratory birds. And of course, you have some part of the population that comes earlier. So you have a normal distribution curve, and those that are leaving earlier, sometimes if they're going to start doing more successful because the boreal forests in Canada are ready for them and they get there early, they might be more successful. And so over time, that migratory instinct, that Zugunru instinct, which is certainly the olfactory response, but certainly other things. My course I call the mysteries of migration, because we're looking at the complexity of that physiology. And we know that natural selection works in that direction. That's one thing we do know. But who knows? I remember hearing the black poles really early last year. I thought maybe those earlier populations of black poles are getting up there are going to be more successful than the ones that are on the normal time frame. So they have the capacity to adapt, but these rapid changes in the environment are not. What we're seeing here in the Anthropocene and the rapid changes relatively quickly are very difficult for complex species to adapt the adaptations.
One other factor, I don't want to bring a whole lot of politics into this, but if you're looking at the current regime that's in there now, when you look at environmental groups who are trying to conserve natural areas, they have to win every single fight. People trying to destroy habitat have to win only once. And once it's destroyed, it's going to be gone either for a very long time or forever. And so it will be very important to monitor just if some of these areas do get destroyed, as is being planned, what effect that's going to have on birds who are migrating. Because I remember when I was out in California many, many years ago, they're talking about the shorebird migration along the West Coast. And the salt marshes were all being paved over and disappearing. And it's like having a highway without putting any gas stations on it. So, just birds need places to refuel along the way. And it's going to be very important to monitor what's going to happen to some of these areas if they are destroyed by the regime who's in there now.
I think, in politics aside, there's a lot of people across the board who recognize and demonstrate that sense of respect and the reciprocity that comes back to us from demonstrating that respect to all the things in the natural world which evolved in this absolutely beautiful process from which they're there, that sometimes we understand and we don't. There's no reason for us to not respect it. So.
I'd like to add one thing about the migration starting earlier. If the insects that fuel part of the migration don't come out earlier, or if the plants come out earlier and the insects don't, that can also have a very negative effect on bird migration. So as our climate changes, the phenology of when things come out may or may not go in like increments, and that is a problem.
And that's one of the reasons why, if you do study birds, you also have to study plants, you also have to study insects, you have to study the whole picture. It's not just looking for birds. You have to be concerned about everything that the birds depend on.
And everybody, pay attention too along the shoreline. The red knots are a great example of, the necessity of having that habitat with the horseshoe crabs in Delaware Bay, for instance, as stopover sites for these long distance migrants, and how critical that is. Thank you all for putting your 2 cents in here. I really appreciate you all coming and helping out tonight. I think as we wrap up, it's 8 o'clock. We want to be respectful of people's time. But Jim, do you want to say, folks are welcome to come. I'll be there on Saturday morning. We'll be happy to come and help.
Oh, good, Tom.
Anybody else who
Yes, by all means, come. We're not going to have too many people. I'm certain by extending the invitation that way. We hopefully will have enough for 3 to 4 to 5 people per group. And it matters little in groups of that size whether people are expert birders or intermediate birders or beginners. We can generally have enough expertise there to importantly have those eyes seeing birds and identifying them as a side effect of that, really. But there's a job for everybody, and there's certainly a place for everybody to come, and I hope you will. I think this could be a really fine day. Fortunately, the forecasts are favoring us at the moment, and hopefully that will continue.
So meet
So
at the
look
front
forward to
gate.
seeing you there.
Yeah,
Tina.
meet at the front gate of the Occoquan National Wildlife Refuge. It's easy to find on Google Maps or Waze or whatever. And the gates, and there will be a bunch of us there early, birding right there in the area, outside the cars. And then at 6:30 it opens and go all the way in. Don't go to the visitor center, but
If by some chance for the
drive
bird
all the way in.
banders, if for bird banders or for some other inexplicable reason, the Fish and Wildlife Service opens the gate before 7 o'clock, we will go in. And so come straight through the main gate, follow the paved road to the central parking lot, and there you'll find us set up and waiting.
Where the
See you there by 7 o'clock.
Any questions out there? And Tina, did we miss anything else we need to cover in the chat?
We had a couple questions that came up. Some of them got answered. So, Tanya asked, for folks who can't make it to Occoquan, is it helpful if they count birds wherever they live? Like on eBird on Saturday?
I'm not sure how to answer that. At one point, there was something similar to the backyard bird count being pursued, and now that is a separate day and a separate event, and that's where I would recommend people look. And you all have that on the website, I believe, the information about backyard bird count. There you can do it from home or from any place you set up to watch the birds that day.
Yeah, and I'd say yes. You know, we're in the peak of migration right now. You've got another week or two. Get up every morning when it's nice. Get up, listen to the dawn chorus. It'll make you mentally healthy, and record and put your eBird in. Do it every day for the next 2 weeks.
I would encourage you to think about using iNaturalist. Or eBird rather, and information. And if you're photographing, consider putting your products on iNaturalist if you're proud of the identification, or if you're seeking further identification from the quite numerous experts that review those photos and keep everybody straight.
If you have any questions and you haven't used Merlin and eBird quite a lot, come and we'll help you out with that on Saturday, of course. So, great tools. Any other questions are out there? Gabrielle says, reading the beak of the finch. So looking at, that's a text I've used with graduate students before, actually. The wonderful, what's your question about it? Galapagos, on the Galapagos finches, where we actually demonstrated, you know, over 20 years, the rapid turnover, and measuring all the beaks of all the birds on the island. They were able to do that and show that evolution happens relatively rapidly in a population. So, yeah, fantastic example of learning about natural selection. and the need for diversity within a population. Other things that came up, Tina. Questions about cardinals. One of the things I'm encouraging some of my students to do, I do nature awareness, is to pick out and go out there and just focus on your cardinals that will come in every morning. And look at the second year birds that were hatched last summer. And the young males, as they get going and they're singing a little bit earlier on, you can distinguish, when you listen carefully, you can tell the young birds from the more mature, the older birds. And it's like the young boys choir trying to ramp up a little bit. And it's kind of funny, and it's a lot of fun to listen to them improve their song patterns if they're trying to establish a territory and attract mates, how they actually learn that process and listen to the older birds and modify their song patterns. So pay attention to your local birds. Don't take them for granted. All right. Okay, I guess, Tina, do you want people